I used to tell all the young men and women that worked for us when I was in New York, the people that you drink and party with in your 20s and early 30s are going to end up running things. We were all a bunch of kids coming up in the industry, and now we're all kind of running those different levels of industry and business.
If I could go back in my lifetime and say, what's a big mistake? I wish I figured this out earlier.
Ask questions, ask why.
It takes a special leader to help you grow in a certain role.
Doesn't matter how I speak, doesn't matter how I look.
And it holds true as you think big and don't let anybody stop you.
Now that's a success story.
Thanks for joining us on this edition of Success Stories. Today we have a special guest, Ed Kiernan, the founder of Stream Engine. Ed, thanks for joining us today.
Steve, thanks for having me. Excited to talk about our product, and nice to not see you at a youth sports field. So
yeah, right. Yep. Well, the conversation, we like to kind of paint the picture of your success story and where you started, how you got that journey to get to where you are. So lay the groundwork. Where did your success story start?
Yeah, born outside of New York City, grew up in East Palestine, Ohio. Went to Mount Union. Didn't really have any clue what I wanted to do. Started out as a geology major. My college roommate and he went on to drill for oil all over the world. And I decided to get into sports marketing, which was really my passion. I mean, growing up in the Youngstown area, everything around here is sports centric. So for me to go into sports was a natural. For me to go into golf was not a natural, but it's where I ended up, or at least where I started. So during my time at Mount Union, I did an internship with Jim Cook, who's John Cook's father, who won the U.S. Amateur and a well-known professional golfer. At the time, it was the NEC World Series of Golf, and they would run several events throughout the year, and I would ultimately go to work for them after interning for them for 2 straight summers. So I would spend summers at the NEC World Series of Golf, which became the first World Golf Championship. I'd spend time at Cabo at the Senior Slam and also the Las Vegas Invitational. So I really got a chance to understand the golf world and how the PGA Tour worked at a macro level. I quickly had an opportunity to move to Hartford, Connecticut, which is now the Travelers Championship. At the time, it was the Cannon Greater Hartford Open. It was the second largest in terms of attendance next to Phoenix. It had kind of a party atmosphere. So me going in there in my early 20s was a really awesome opportunity. We had a lot of success there, met a lot of people at the tour, and then had another chance to kind of pick up and move again. I left Hartford, Connecticut. I moved to Tampa, Florida, where we oversaw the GTE golf business. At the time, GTE had the Byron Nelson in Dallas and the GTE Classic, which was a senior tour event on ESPN at the time. So I would pop back and forth and oversee GTE's sponsorship, which is now Verizon, of those 2 major tournaments. During that time, I met Peter Jacobson, who is a fairly well-known golfer, probably best known for Golden Tee, the voice of Golden Tee, than anything else, or winning the U.S. Open and Tin Cup, but has had a great career and had a great agency out in Portland, Oregon. And I met with a couple of his guys, and they convinced me to ultimately move to Portland, which a kid from Northeast Ohio, Toledo was the Pacific Northwest to me. So
yeah, right.
Had an opportunity to go out there. It was amazing. I'd never really experienced the Pacific Northwest. So living in Beaverton, Oregon, a couple of miles away from the Nike headquarters, had an interesting opportunity to meet and do a lot of business with those guys. And when Tiger Woods came out, we were involved in all that stuff. So it was a cool opportunity. It was also when the event business was starting to transition into more of a corporate consulting business, and we would create events. So we created the Shark Shootout for Greg Norman, and we created the CBS Charity Classic for Billy Andrade and Brad Faxon, and we'd go around and do events in Kansas City and Baltimore, and events with Bryson DeChambeau and John Daly when Bryson was a kid in Fresno. So we would create Monday, Tuesday events. But what was happening was the transition of sports marketing was really starting to forge its way into the industry. And as we were there, we were starting to work with Toyota and Lexus and Kettle One Vodka and CVS Pharmacy and Red Bull and all these amazing brands that needed our help in the corporate consulting sports marketing world. So what that meant, I usually tell people, if you have legal problems, you hire an attorney. If you want to spend money in sports and entertainment, whether that be the Olympics or FIFA World Cup or a Major League Baseball sponsorship in Cleveland or Pittsburgh, you hire someone like us, and we manage, negotiate on your behalf, and really act as your consultant and ultimately your activation arm to handle your media, your social media, your on-site activation, your hospitality, everything. So we did that for a while. It was great. We were being courted to sell the agency to Omnicom, which at the time was the largest media company in the world. GMR Marketing wanted to buy us. He ultimately decided he didn't want to sell, and I ultimately decided that I wanted to go in a different direction and kind of spread my wings outside of golf. I wanted to experience, which I did, Olympics, FIFA World Cup, NASCAR, NFL, MLB, NBA, MLS, things that I'd never really been exposed to before. So it also gave me a chance to operate the New York office and living in the city, and experiencing that was something that I always wanted to do from a working perspective. So living there and really grinding it out at a time when the city was really good was a great chance for us to go do that. I worked for GMR for a couple years and had always had a burning desire to go do my own thing. I didn't know what that meant throughout the years, but we did that in 2012 at Super Bowl in Indianapolis. We announced that we formed Engine Shop, which was my first agency that we built and sold in 2015 to private equity. So we quickly built that with gentlemen from the entertainment world. So my background was sports and entertainment. I met a bunch of guys that own nightclubs in Miami and nightclubs in Vegas, and we're doing the ESPN parties and the Maxim parties at Super Bowl and all these high-end celebrity A-list red carpet events. And I said, if we could take your world, which at the time, if you remember the USA Today, if we could take your world, which is the purple, the lifestyle, and you could take my world, which is the red, and we could jam them together, like, we'll crush it. Because I've been inside the biggest and the best, and they don't have that access of what we could create. So we created that. We quickly won agency of record for Mercedes-Benz, Johnson & Johnson, Bud Light. We launched Bud Light Platinum, Omega watches, all sorts of great brands. And we had about 7 or 8 agencies around the country. We built that, sold that in 15. I stayed until 17, and I would commute back and forth every week from our house in Ohio to my place in the city, which is crazy. But the whole goal was to build it and sell it. If you ever want any Delta Sky miles, then they're yours. Way too many nights traveling, but I'll get into that in a little bit. So at the time, my father wasn't doing well. He was battling early dementia, and it was after a guy that had left for 25 years and, as I just told you, lived all over the country. It was time for me to kind of come back and take care of that, which I did. I didn't know quite what I was going to do, so I took the winnings and quite a bit of the winnings from the exit and kind of bet on myself and started a handful of businesses back here, which had some success, had some failures. I've made money, I've lost money, but it's always been my money. So, as an entrepreneur, when you're writing those checks and building that foundation, sometimes it's not always easy. But, we got after it and went after it. And a couple of things I got involved with, one of them was really interesting, was an esports business called Damage, which we started an agency in LA with a couple of professional gamers, some guys in the advertising industry like myself with sports backgrounds. And I would see the consumption habits of my own boys in my house. At the time, they were probably 17 and 10. So I was watching how my oldest boy would consume his content. I was watching how my youngest would consume his content, how my wife would consume her content, and how I would consume my content. Now, during the pandemic, all of that changed because none of our TVs were on, and obviously streaming was exploding and esports was exploding. And I watched before my eyes how the modern day NBC Sports or ESPN, which I predominantly watch, my now 12-year-old will never sit down and watch that because he receives all of his content on his phone or through games.
To him. Yep.
So the world intrigued me. During that, we had a lot of success early, not because of me, because of my business partners who were utter geniuses in the space. We quickly became Intel's global agency of record. So as we were working on major Intel programs for them in Brisbane, Australia, and Rio, and Katowice, Poland, as I'm sitting in Poland, Ohio, true story. We were working on all these major programs for them. One of my business partners called me one day and he said, "Hey, we're having a problem with our client. One of our ambassadors is big gamer. His name escaped me right now. Was it Mr. Beast? Anyway, it'll come to me. We have a large gamer. We have to watch these 9-hour streams, and they're concerned because, we're billing them for that time. And obviously someone has to sit there and make sure that the ambassador is doing what they need, and that somebody is us. So my business partner, Brian, who's a genius, called me and said, I want to build a piece of technology where we can automate all of that. And I said, you're kidding me. Like, can you do that?
Shit doesn't work, right?
So yeah, so that's where it started. So that was about, we were trying to solve a problem that we had in everyday life and that I had in my whole career, because it had to be done manually. This is where it gets interesting. So as a business partnership, we threw $100,000 into an LLC and we said, let's give it a shot. And we partnered with a couple of the most insane people I've ever met in my life. And I'll give you some stories on them, but, a couple of Harvard geniuses. I mean, literal geniuses. I'm lucky to be on the team. Fortunate to be on.
Yeah.
But again, my business partners are teaming Brian and Dave and Cosm and Ethan. I mean, they're some of the smartest dudes that I've met. But between the 4 original founding partners, we have 6 exits amongst us. So you've got guys that have been there and done that.
Yeah.
I'm the old dog on the team at 51. So I mean, you got some young, smart, aggressive dudes, but they built a technology that I saw early on what it could do and what it was doing. And I kept telling my wife, like, wow, if this can turn out and actually really become what I think it can become, it can be an absolute game changer. And what we originally set out to build was a Nielsen for digital streaming, if you will. And the way that these guys combine the processes of AI, ML, and NLP, which is AI, machine learning, and natural language processing, it allowed us to take the modalities of everything that is said, everything that is spoken, and everything that's in text and bring them together. So essentially what that does is create a psychographic profile. So I'll tell you what I mean by that. When I was in the golf business, we would geo-target people to sell Mercedes-Benz. So if I was geo-targeting you and you fit in that certain wealth demographic and I was going after you to try to sell you Mercedes, well then I was going to try to sell you an Omega. I was going to try to sell you certain vacation packages in Palm Desert and Naples, and you get it, right?
Yep.
So while we were trying to do that, the market wasn't quite ready for it in 2020 and 2021, as you can imagine. In the middle of the pandemic, I was picking up the phones and traveling to New York and meeting with my friends that were sitting in some of the largest agencies in the city that would normally have 500, 600, 700 people. There'd be 6 or 10 people in the office. So I saw at a macro level how the world was changing, how the media world was changing. And we went after this space really hard. For the first time in my life, kind of went out on a limb, walked away from a very well-paying job, which at the time was a massive risk. There were many times that I, wasn't quite sure how things were going to turn out, to be completely honest with you. But I had a good team, not only with my guys, but also, kind of Team Kiernan. I mean, my wife has a great gig, thank God, and was able to really support the lion's share of this while she let me chase this dream. And I think there were a lot of times where she was thinking, what did I sign up for? But I also,
what the hell did I agree to?
Yeah, which in all candor, she's right.
She's right. Yeah,
she was right. But as we started down this path, we started to have success. We did, just over about $1.5 million in revenue. So we were starting to prove the model. We started to see that we were having success despite all the market challenges and things that we were up against. Here's where it gets interesting. A friend of mine, lots of friends of mine, as I reached out to my network, I was literally calling everybody saying, look, this is what we've built. How are their applications? What do you think? Who can you connect me with? One of them was Michael Munoz, son of Anthony Munoz, chief football officer at the Pro Football Hall of Fame. Michael's a good friend of mine. As I always jokingly tell him, one of the smartest football players I've ever met. Him and my son are the two smartest. And he said, wow, this is incredible. I think it has defense and intelligence applications. And I said, no, I agree with you. I said, but as I'm raising capital in a pandemic and we're trying to get this thing up and down Madison Avenue, I really don't have time, energy, or effort to focus on that. As I was skipping, 3 months, 4 months, 5 months, 6 months, 7 months of not paying myself. And trying to get this thing going. So this, again, gets interesting. He puts us on the phone with a gentleman. Michael's from Cincinnati, Ohio, originally. Went to Moeller, put me in contact with a gentleman at Wright Pat Air Force Base who is an utter genius, and I'll leave his name out of it. And there's a lot of things I have to leave out of this just as I start to tell
For
sure. But one of the things he just built was an autonomous boat that drops out of a helicopter for the SEALs. So just to kind of give you the brevity of what we're dealing, like these people are
Different
next
worlds.
level people.
Yeah.
He had a meeting in DC with his contacts and went down and said at a macro level, this is what these guys have. Theoretically, if you took every TikTok video from Instagram and we wanted to distill that down in an LLM that could be anything from, death to America to whatever you want it to be, just like a query or a Google search, you would be able to go through that whole thing and do just that. So once we knew that we had interest from the Army and the Navy, as he came back and said they both want it, that's where it starts to get interesting. So I really don't have any military background.
I was going to say, this is a brand new channel for you, right?
Any military connections. It has been one of the most amazing experiences of my life because I've never had a chance to interact with military. And I will tell you, in dealing with the commercial world versus the military world, the amount of just respect and integrity that I've seen is everything that you'd expect. I just had really never had a chance to work in that space. And we've met a lot of amazing people. But through golf, my early days in the PGA Tour, there was a gentleman in Kansas City, as I mentioned before, that helped us get an event where George Brett was involved and a variety of Kansas City, hierarchy. His friends were also guys like Rush Limbaugh, who's since passed, and General Mike Mullen, who was chief of staff for both Bush and Obama. And as my business partner said to me, do you realize when Obama told us he got bin Laden, he was on TV with Obama? And I said, I know he's big in the military, but I don't know how. I don't know the org chart. So that's what you're dealing with.
Yeah.
So Dave said, look, 2 years ago to Augusta, you come to the Masters. I wasn't at the time. He said, if you can come down, I'll set up a dinner with Mike and his two Navy SEAL sons, which he did. We had dinner. I explained to them what we had at a macro level and how it could save American lives, both here and abroad. He agreed. Put me in touch with the Army Cyber, which happened to be in Augusta, which I did not know. I knew there was a base down there, but I didn't know what the discipline was. And about a month later, we were down at Army Cyber in a room full of Stanford engineers, Caltech engineers, UC Irvine engineers, Carnegie Mellon engineers, West Point engineers that were in fatigues, and us. And we went through an entire process of talking about a technology that they wanted to build that was similar to ours. So we went through this whole day and we were talking about, drawing out code and all these things that were completely foreign to me because I'm the business, sales, and marketing guy, not the coding guy.
You're not the coder.
But what I did learn was that the problem that we solved was the deficiency that they had. The next day when we met with the CEO, he said, what did you guys think? How was the day? There was a lot of great people there and it was amazing. We met some just incredible people from the Pentagon and all over. It was really interesting. And he said, what do you think? And I said, with all candor, you guys want to build a Toyota Camry, and we've already built a Gulfstream G550, and it's global, and it's built because we raised $4 million and we took the risk and we built it for a completely different industry. And the first time I ever heard the term, which I had to Google, dual use technology and dual use product, was when we were on the phone with the Winklevoss twins trying to sell them money from, those Winklevoss twins, who one of our advisors and investors in Vail taught them how to ski. Crazy. But they said to us, gentlemen, congratulations, you built a dual use technology. And I Googled it because when they said it, up until that time, dual use was like a Jeep, right? Like a commercial Jeep.
Yeah.
So we happened to build an AI technology at a point in time where it was not ready for the space that we built it for.
Yeah, ahead of time.
It is now. The advertising space is now embracing it. But where we're really starting to see the immediate need is within the intelligence space and the military. I'm sorry, the military intelligence space and the law enforcement space. So it's been an interesting journey as we are now standing up both the military intelligence space with the AFRL deal that we just signed a couple of weeks ago. And I'll tell you a little bit about that story. So
Yeah, tell us about that new deal.
yeah, so the AFRL is the Air Force Research Lab. And as I started to see a lot of things starting to happen here in Northeast Ohio and in Ohio in general, in terms of everything that JD's doing and Vivek's doing and reinventing this area, right? When we grew up, it was a steel town. It still is. And how do you bring back that manufacturing with everything that's happening on a global macro level right now? And it's been happening. And Kimberly-Clark is building $1 billion facility, and TJX just built $1 billion. And Intel's coming to Columbus. All the stuff that you're well aware of. And as we started to look at this, I picked up the phone and just like I would in the commercial world at home during, probably the most difficult time, I was just calling people, trying to get in front of people. I reached out to Ohio Apex, which is an accelerator tied with YSU, and they're throughout the state, Ohio University and others. And those guys really helped put us on a path of trying to connect us to as many people as possible. Yeah, it was really, really helpful. Scott Loveland and Joey Scott in particular, fantastic through this process. And what it did through hook and crook and a lot of conversations and a lot of, hey, you guys should talk to this guy, was ultimately we got connected to kind of the right group, if you will, at Wright Pat Air Force Base. And we were on a call with a gentleman named Pete Kay, who I also need to mention, who, God love you, Pete, in Cincinnati, has been amazing to us because he recognized exactly what we built and realized what needed to happen to it. So after that meeting, they loved it. They put us in touch with AFRL, which is in Rome, New York, Air Force Research Lab. They wanted to meet with us immediately. We went up about 5 or 6 days before the Christmas holiday and met with their whole team. It was a really cool experience because I'd never gone through a military base, several levels, long guns. It was kind of my first experience going into something like that. But it was great. We met with all of their top people, including Dr. Bryant Wysocki, who is the top AI, nuclear, and quantum engineering guy in the world. Smart, and cool, like super awesome. But when we showed them what we have, or what we had, they couldn't believe it and offered us a CRADA on the spot. And I'll explain what a CRADA is. And the reason they did that is because we walked in with a finished product, kind of by happenstance, and said, we built this for the advertising world and the advertising community, which still works, and we can chase millions and tens of millions. Or instead of selling people things, we can point it in this direction, give you guys real-time intelligence, whether you're in New York or Delhi or Israel or wherever that may be in the country. So that started a process of it allowed us to finally legitimize what we had. And throughout the process, it was interesting because it would take someone with a high level of understanding, usually from MIT or Stanford or UC Irvine or Carnegie Mellon in Pittsburgh is where all of the top technology is coming out of right now. And really out of Carnegie Mellon in Pittsburgh, which makes it really, really interesting. But what we expect now to do and move forward with CRADA, and what a CRADA is it's allows our IP and the government's IP to work together to take our product and make it operational and deploy it within the field, so they can start utilizing it. What the first step will be, and we're in the process of working with 3 divisions right now within the Air Force. So what we'll ultimately do is build them product use cases, and that could be anything from 4 guys in a Humvee, and we want to pull your product up on a laptop. We're monitoring a cell outside of Fallujah, and we're monitoring all their social media. The chatter starts to die down around 12:30, 1 o'clock in the morning. At 2:35, 2:40, we haven't had anything on social media, so there's probably a good chance they're sleeping. Probably a good time to go in and get them. Homeland Security said to us, we'd like to use your product and pair it with geospatial technology. What do I mean by that? So if you go to Giant Eagle or a bar or a golf course and your wife pulls you up, she knows exactly where you are when you're moving. Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
One of the problems that everyone has at a macro level is there's so much data that there's no way to go through it all. So whether it's a school shooting or whether it's what happened in Idaho with the fire and the guy, these things are happening on social media that we're all hearing about 3, 4, and 5 days later because there's no way to decipher all that data. And what we're able to do is to pinpoint it and decipher it down. So from a geolocation standpoint, again, theoretically, we could take everything in the state of Ohio and we could go across every K through 12 student and detect school shootings. Back to the, imagine if we were at the downtown Columbus Westin and someone sent something out coded on Twitch or on Telegram or whatever platform they used, we would have an LLM around that would search for keywords and code words. And theoretically, if a sex trafficker sent something from, let's say, the Westin downtown Columbus, we would know that. Department of Homeland Security would know that, and Columbus PD could be kicking down the door in 5 minutes. So when you look at the real-time basis of it, it was built for us to take data from the Olympics or FIFA World Cup to a CMO and say, your sales are down, you should make real-time changes, instead of getting the data back 6 months later and saying, well, we'll look forward 4 years from now,
next year,
we'll knock it out of the park, right? So we needed it for the real time, and now the different applications from real time are starting to really take off. So it's been an interesting.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it's been interesting. It's been amazing, and like I said to you when you reached out to me, we haven't really had a chance to tell the story. And from a guy that's lived it, I mean, it has been one hell of a story. But what these guys built was so amazing that I had to literally put it on my back and say, if you don't get this thing funded, and if you don't get it in the room, it dies on the vine. And that was something that, it was hard to keep myself motivated throughout that whole process, right? When you don't have anybody patting you on the back.
Yeah. It's an uphill battle.
And you're trying to sell an algorithm, right? Yeah, you can imagine. A lot of my buddies think I've lost my absolute mind. But at the same time, I think I probably did as well, because in order to go through this process, it was a tough one.
You had to put the blinders on a little bit, right?
I had to. I had to I blocked everything out of my life except my family and my business. And I bet you a lot of my friends, I run into them like, where are you? We don't see you here. I have been head down grinding like crazy. Number one, because it was the first time in my life I ever went out and asked anyone for money. So we raised just shy. We'll end up closing our safe at 4 million. But when you go out to family and friends and, and they're putting 25s and 50s and 100s and 200s in your business, and you're not doing well, and I'm the kind of guy that, put it on myself, like, okay, if this thing doesn't work out, I owe you 200, I owe you 100, I owe you 50, I'll get you all back. Yeah. So I'm sitting here thinking, how about a $4 million bogey, and I'm gonna have to build another business if this thing doesn't work out.
Yeah, how am I parlaying this out?
Yeah, but like I said, we ended up building out the case studies and building out the needed case studies to prove the model. We're now in a process where we're standing up military and intelligence, and we're also in the process of standing up law enforcement, which means a variety of things, but I can't get too into it because of confidentiality reasons on that one.
For sure.
I do expect us to venture off and do sports, maybe not the way that we originally intended. What I would like to do, and we're in talks with several partners right now about how we would expand this business, but from awesome. Every major sporting event, whether it's a PGA Tour event, whether it's an NFL game globally, NBA game globally, cricket game globally, FIFA World Cup's coming, the Olympics are coming, any major gathering of people. That could be, working with Chandler, Arizona right now. They have an ostrich festival, which brings in 80,000 people. So any major gathering of people in today's society, if you're not monitoring that social chatter, unfortunately, a lot of bad things can happen. So,
Could happen. Yeah.
we're excited when you realize that you build a product essentially by mistake because it was built for another industry, and the brevity of being able to protect and save our warfighters here and abroad with everything that's happening in the world right now, being able to protect our citizens at high visibility, high target locations, being able to come in at a state level, which is, again, is something we can't do right now, and monitor K through 12. And I understand all the macro level politics that comes with that, but
For sure.
we've built a technology that's an absolute game changer, which is why none of us were willing to walk away. You had four blue collar kids, that some of the toughest guys I've ever met, that when you sit us at a table together, you'd never put the four of us together, but what each one of us brings in terms of skill set is a unique skill set, to the point where I even told my own son, go learn code, which he's going on a senior year of Boulder, because as I was going through this process, I said to him, your goal should be to own the team, not to play on the team, right? He was a good athlete. That should be your goal. With your brain, try to own it. Yeah. That's where you should be shooting for. And I said, if you can stand up in a room full of people like I do and convince them and we should, you should do this and this is what we're going to do. And you can sit down behind a computer and you can write code like I'm explaining to our architects and what we need. That's a pretty unique ninja. What does all that mean? I mean, look, I'm back in Northeast Ohio. We've built what I've said for the last 5 years, I think will be one of the largest businesses that will come out of the global pandemic. And it's actually even bigger than I thought. So, we're doing it from our home offices via Zoom. So again, bootstrapped. So if when we have real money, real infrastructure, my goal, and this sounds crazy, but the whole story is sounding crazy. My goal, and I've convinced my business partners of this, who are 2 guys in Orange County and 1 in Miami, to put our corporate headquarters in Youngstown, Ohio.
Hell yeah.
So I have had several conversations with some of the top guys at Carnegie Mellon, Dr. Mike Matterock and Robert Beveridge, 2 great guys. Both working heavily in the defense tech space. And what I want to do is partner with Carnegie Mellon and constituents in the state, different colleges within the state, obviously led by YSU and Case Western and Mount Union, and we'll give BW a holler.
I don't know about Mount, but BW for sure.
But yeah, this can help be a spark to help reinvent this area. And the guys from Carnegie Mellon believe it can too. So if I left for 25 years and came back, which is something I never thought I would do in a million years, and sent my kid off to learn code, then if I'm going to shake things up, I think I'm going to shake them up here. And, I've read things that Les Wexner said about what he wants to do in AI and in technology and real estate. And I actually did some work for those guys when I first moved back here, Yarner Steiner, who's his partner. So what I would like to do is create an AI defense tech hub here, which is about 4-hour drive from the Air Force Research Lab, 4-hour drive from Wright Pat Air Force Base, 4-hour drive from the White House. And I know that because my sister lives in Chevy Chase, 3 miles from the White House. And more importantly, an hour away from Carnegie Mellon, where all of this talent is coming from. And the fact that we would work with the schools and create a feeder system.
Yeah. Well, that's what you need, right? Because you can create this business, but if you don't have people to come up and take it to the next level or to fulfill, right, then you're SOL.
Which is why I went to Carnegie Mellon. So we'll have the engineers. The product's built. What we now need to do is sell managed service layers, and it's similar to the advertising business that we were in before, a managed service layer and headcount. But at the end of the day, our goal is to deploy this all over the globe. And how we do that through partners, we've talked to everyone. all the big players in the defense space. People want to be our big brothers. They want to help us. Our goal is to get this technology built, continue to build it. My goal is to have it be a lightning rod here in the state, and Vivek and JD, I hope somebody gets you this. Coach Tressel, I know he's aware of it, and I'm coming to him. So yeah, we've got something here that, God has blessed us and God has blessed me, and put me through one hell of a test in order to do it, which I also needed. But we've built an absolute monster technology, which one of my business partners, who, when he first told me what it was, he said, it's the most powerful AI, ML, NLP engine in the world for all things streaming from every corner of the globe. And that's what it is.
Crazy. That's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah, it's been a wild one.
Congratulations.
It's been a wild one. Thank you.
Yeah.
But our goal now, the goal now is to build it. And the goal now is to build it as big as we can. And like I said, the success that we're having, flying around on our own dimes, literally still bootstrapping it. But as I've said to the guys a million times, like, if you were gonna do this and you were gonna script it, I've brought in my family and friends for the Capitol. Everybody's 1 degree separated from me. So if it's, my buddy James in Vail, it's his buddy that he plays golf with. So it's all, we built it that way. I had hoped that I could build it that way. Was able to do that. And now we're going out really with any institutional capital.
It's amazing.
Because
that's the crazy part. Even more crazy than the technology is how you've developed the business.
Well, yeah, but you got to also realize that we paid ourselves a penance. And when I mean a penance, I mean, compared to what I was used to making, you can cut it by a whole hell of a lot.
Yeah, I can imagine.
But as I said to a lot of people throughout the process, if this wasn't what it was, do you really think I'd be still doing it? No, I would have gone to somebody and say, Steve, I owe you $100,000 and I'm going to make it up to you. Yeah. Tim, I owe you $200,000. I'm going to make it up to you. So the hard part was knowing that that's not what it was and that we had to get it in the right room. So yeah, it's been a wild run. What I want to do now is figure out a way that politically this can be a lightning rod for the state. And I've always kind of said that to the guys at Apex and Craig Zamry, who's, at Defense Works and has been integral in getting us in front of the Secret Service, who we're working on something for right now, and others. Anyone that sees it and understands what it is wants it. It's just not as easy in your world and my world to say, okay, I want an MOU and we start Monday. Yeah. Because of the processes that you read about right now and all the technologies that they're trying to speed through the process. We're one of those technologies. And we've been trying to tell the world that, and this world that, for the last 2 years, and they're finally taking notice. So where do we go from here? I envision a massive office somewhere off of 80 which someday houses several thousand people.
That's amazing. That's amazing. It's crazy. It's crazy to think, but well deserved. You guys you're putting into work. A couple questions about your journey, though, to bring back. What do you think was your, along the way? You're a very personable person, right? You carry a big stick. You have a lot of confidence. What do you think got you through, and each one of those jumps? Your greatest asset? Was it a mentor? Was it just a mindset? Was it, our grit that kind of we were born with in our area that a lot of us just are like, I'm making it out of here. I'm going to do this.
My dad came from nothing. He grew up in Hell's Kitchen, New York, when Hell's Kitchen was Hell's Kitchen. And he, would tell me the story that he would get the same truck painted a different color as a kid every year for Christmas. Think about that. So I came from a blue collar Irish cops, FBI agents, do the right thing, go to church on Sunday. It was pretty simple. Don't touch your sister or any other woman, and, don't ever lie to us. That was pretty much the rules in our family. My dad was a hard worker. Growing up in Youngstown, you can't not have a chip on your shoulder, and I have one. I've been told no my whole life. You can't do this, you can't do that, my whole life. And I get it, but I guess I was always confident in my abilities, which is ultimately why I bet on myself. You did the same thing.
For
It's
sure.
a tough thing to do. It's a tough thing to put yourself out there. It's a tough thing to get your motivation from Instagram. But when I would have a bad day, I would get in my car. I would drive to some of the toughest parts of town. I'm talking the north side. I'd go up to Warren, drive around where my son went to school. I'd go around Mooney and downtown Youngstown. I'd go to East Palestine, and I would drive around Girard where all the mills are. And I would get so mad at myself that I got soft. And I did. I mean, you start to, you get a job, you get comfortable, you start to make great salary. And I got soft. So for me to be back in this area, dealing with everything that I was dealing with, trying to get this thing out of the gutter, I got inspiration from the most gritty place on the planet. And I also got inspiration from my son, who's going to be a senior in college. I have two boys. One is 12, Brady, and one is 21, Trip. And Trip does everything right? So like when I was a kid, I was out partying,
Not like us.
fun, and I wanted to have a mix of fun, and I had a hell of a great time, and sports was great, but it was, whatever. He locks in, he's smart, his grades, everything he does, he works out 7 days a week, he does all the right things, he never steps to the center ever. And I thought to myself, man, what a great young man. Like, God bless him. Like, I wonder if I did it straight. I wonder how good I could have been, right? Like, and I equate sports and business to everything, because
For sure.
if I walked up to you on the diamond or the court of the football field and you did something, I'm going to put my arm around you and I'm going to say, you good? Are we cool here? Okay. Next time if I come up to you, that's not going to be the conversation that we're going to have. And you can't always have that in a corporate environment, right? And I think that was one of the things for me. I was looking at everything at a macro level. It was like, I need to do my own thing. I love to build cultures. I love to build teams. I think people enjoy working for me and with me and around me. And I don't say for me because I don't treat them like that. I treat them like we all work together.
Team. Yep.
And I try to get the best out of people, but I give them everything I got too. So when they see you're in it with them, that's the game. And I think growing up here, loving sports like I did, playing football, basketball, baseball, getting out and seeing behind the curtain of NFL, Major League Baseball, and all those other things was great. But the competition aspect of it, the competitive aspect of it is what I like. And I like to compete. And I love the aspect of competing in business. And I have mortal enemies, just like I did playing high school sports, right? Yeah. It's the same thing in business. And if you're playing it at a level or playing sports at a level, then that's going to be the natural thing that happens.
Yeah.
So to say that this area didn't inspire me is exactly what it was. But I've also seen this area change in the last 20 years, and I've seen Columbus and everything else change, and I know that we can do the same thing here.
Hey, if you're going to leave some words of wisdom for people along, before I even get to that, Strike Hat, what was you referenced a little bit before of you knew you always wanted to do your own thing.
Yeah.
Where did that come from, and also where did when did you know it was the right time, or when did you probably didn't know, but it's calculating the risk, right?
I always wanted to, early in my career. I mean, even in college, I was inspired by guys that I grew up with and did their own thing, and people that I saw doing that. When I was partners with Peter Jacobson was probably the most interesting time, because I got to see a level of wealth and just amazing things that never in my million years would I have thought, flying around private jets, and it was unbelievable. And Trump's helicopter from ADT Skills Challenge and all sorts of really interesting things. I don't know, it's a tough one.
Yeah. Did along that journey when you made the jump, almost everyone I talked to, and it holds true for me as well. You talk about what you need to put yourself through, right? And what you taking away your salary and a mindset. but it's also, getting your family on board with it, right? Right? Like that's a tough conversation because I feel like the people around me rallied, supported, they were questioned it. But then, when it really got the real conversation was at home with my wife of, hey, this is what I think I'm going to do. And that was my greatest sell, I believe, of my life is when I had got her on board and she was like, yeah, do it.
Yeah, look, my family. This has changed my whole perspective on everything. I mean, um, like I said, my wife bankrolled it from a guy that was, used to being the guy making the money, controlling things. I took a step back, and for the first time since I was 15 years old, didn't get paychecks for months at a time. I think sometimes the longest stretch was 7 months. I didn't pay myself. So yeah, she took a big burden. It changed, affected our lifestyle. It didn't change anything, but that's a lot of money that I should have been out making, that I made a commitment and wasn't going to do anything to deviate from it until I knocked it in the end zone. So that was my mentality. It was, and you hear, oh, sink or swim, failure's not an option. Like, you go live it, and failure is an option.
Yeah,
And
it can happen.
yeah, it can. And I look, and like I said, I've made money, I've lost money, and I guess I look at money differently now, right? Which is a good thing.
For sure.
So for me to come back and look at things differently, I'm like, do I really need that? Or everybody kind of goes into these things, and we didn't, but a lot of people go into like Lambos and beach houses, right? And now it's kind of the last thing on my mind is that. What's on my mind right now is, I look around here and it's like, I always have, like, wow, this would be cool if we had here. Like, I want to build more businesses. That's what kind of drives what I like to do. That I like to build things. So I think, guys like you and I, hopefully we'll be able to shake this place up for the next 20, 25 years. And I think with the support in the area and the people that we just talked about, yeah, I know when we can sit down and have a conversation about it, they'll like what they hear. So
yeah, and the people in the area, they're rallying around it. I'm not sure if you were familiar with the organization Ohio X, but I was just up at Sportsland up at Huntington with the Haslam and the people at an event up there. I'll get you introduced, but a great organization, just trying to the Silicon Heartland is what they're trying to push for Ohio and bringing, especially down to Columbus. But I think this belt all the way up, I feel like everyone around us wants something to have that rallying cry. They
well,
want
and
something to get
I
behind.
know that, and that's, I've said to all these guys that I've been dealing with, is I know this can be it, and to know that, and to want to do that, and to want to grow it here, and all those things that I haven't said out loud yet. Yeah, a lot of people are going to think I'm crazy, but like I said to you, a lot of people think I'm crazy for what I just did. And, and I had to look at myself a couple times when I would have a heart to heart with a friend that would say, Ed, I don't see it. Sorry. I don't see it doesn't make any sense to me. I get off the phone and think, have I just literally gone all in for something?
Yeah. You reassess and
but then I
everything.
would have somebody from Stanford say there was an engineering marvel, or somebody that was the former head of the NSA say, congratulations, gentlemen. We needed this 10 years ago when we were fighting ISIS. So me being on the front lines of this whole process allowed me to hear those things that would reassure me that when 100 people would say, we're not interested, or we don't understand it, which was part of what we were dealing with. And I understand that, because at a macro level, AI, everything's AI. And what we ultimately did was, what was really difficult is we took an algorithm, we productized it, and we productized it for 3 different industries, which there's more. I found 9 different revenue streams in it. And if a student from Mount Union can find 9 revenue streams, and I'd love to get it in the hands of somebody a lot smarter than me. But it's a very powerful tool. It was built at absolutely the most amazing time. We built a piece of the puzzle that's on such a level of the lowest floor that ChatGPT and other things plug into our engine. So yeah, it's been a really interesting, wild one. I can't wait until our top guys and our CEO, Brian Kim in particular, can talk intelligently and run people through demos of the product, because when people see it, it's one of the best. It's the most amazing product I've ever sold in my life, because I don't even have to sell it. I say, Steve, how you doing? Great to see you. Kids are great. Awesome. I go on mute. Brian's going to take over. 45 minutes later, I come back on. I go, love you. Good luck to the Buckeyes this year. And we're moving on to the next step, because it's just such a logical, built by geniuses from Harvard. And I was lucky enough to be the guy they chose to run the gauntlet.
Yeah, it's amazing. You talk about your dreams and kind of the ideas you have. I remember a quote that used to say, somebody said, if your dreams aren't so big that your friends laugh at you about them, they aren't big enough.
They all laughed at me, every one of them. And I get it. I mean, I love them. I totally get it, because if the shoe was on the other foot, me starting a defense tech, AI, ML, NLP company from a former sports marketing advertising, I get it.
Natural progression. You can see how that happens.
But at the same time, I saw what the opportunity was. We took the risk and we went for it. And I think that to me, that's the biggest thing that I, have tried to instill in just anyone around me, young men and women that I ask me about stuff, is the entrepreneurial spirit. It's because it's something that wasn't ingrained in me. And I kind of learned it by happenstance, by, really meeting a lot of entrepreneurs through my process. And I would ask them a lot of questions. I'd run into, again, with Peter at golf tournaments, I'd meet Chris Sullivan from Outback Steakhouse. And I'd say, how do you build, one steakhouse in Tampa at a juggernaut? And he said, he's like, I stand in the back of a restaurant, dropping onions in the batter, thinking, what have I done? So everyone has those moments. And I've heard them from people that have absolutely knocked it out of the park. And, I think it determines what game do you want to play. And for me, it was, I didn't want to play the corporate game anymore. I wasn't good at it. I'm not really good sitting in a meeting where I don't, you get it.
Yeah.
And I need to just have my own, I beat to my own drum. I like to do my own stuff. And, I think that's kind of my future. So if we can build more stuff here, which I know we can, and I plan on doing, that's my goal.
It's excellent. It's excellent. Hey, any words of wisdom along your way that people to motivate them, or like kind of how you kind of ask people along the way how they get there, what they do?
I mean, look, if a kid from East Palestine in Youngstown can go out and raise to the level that I did in the advertising, sports, and entertainment world, you got to be willing to take the leap. And and I moved all over the country, and a lot of people I would understand, wouldn't have done that, and don't always need to do that. It just took me on a journey that, because I met a lot of people within the golf community, and because I would go in and out of these communities, I developed a really interesting network. That network allowed me to sit at home for the last 5 years and work from my home office and pick up the phone and go out and just grind. And along the way, I would, we'd meet somebody who, my uncle is the head of this, or my cousin happens to be that. And just like anything else in the career, just like you're out hustling every day, I took that commercial approach towards a space that no one's done that, because no one's ever brought a product and said, hey guys, here we are. We just built, as I said to my son, we used to make the tanks and bombs here. I said, it's like we own the modern day tank facility. Essentially, we're going to make the tanks. Only it's an algorithm, and we'll be selling it as a service. So it's, again, I'm glad I'm telling it to you, kind of as a first story. And we've got some really big news that's coming out probably in the next 60 days. And we're having some really interesting conversations. So, awesome. My goal is going to be, as I said on the call this morning with my partners, I mean, it's head down 7 days a week, no let up, foot on the gas,
now's the time.
Not a lot of vacations, not a lot of time. It's not time.
Yep.
It's time to get after it. And that's what I'm most excited about, because all we've wanted to do this whole time is to prove what we built. And the AFRL and the Air Force is going to allow us to do that and help us develop it and help us, more importantly, get it out to deployment and commercial ready. And that's someone's looking down over it, because it was kind of like almost divinely done. So if an Irish Catholic kid, from a bunch of cops and FBI can help create this in a different way, then God bless.
Awesome. Yeah. Hey, congratulations on everything. We'll be on the lookout for you. It sounds like that lasting thing was, the power of your network, right? That you grew over time, which you can't. It's authentic. You can't fake that. You can't
I used to tell all the young men and women that worked for us when I was in New York. I said, everybody, the people that you drink and party with in your 20s and early 30s are going to end up running things. And whether it's Jay Monahan, who was the former commissioner at the NBA, or Stern, or all these guys that I've seen elevate to just crazy positions, that we were all a bunch of kids coming up in the industry, and now we're all kind of running those different levels of industry and business, which is really, really great to see.
Continued success. I appreciate you being on. Thank you for sharing your story with everybody. Again, subscribe, follow us along for more great content. Ed, real quick, where can everybody find you guys at? Follow along your story.
Yeah, so Stream Engine is stream-engine.io, stream-engine.io. You can reach me at ed@stream-engine.io, and there's also ways to reach us on the website. So, I would like to get connected, though, at the state level, because when you look at Ohio State games that are coming up, Pro Football Hall of Fame, there's some things here in the state of Ohio that we should be dipping our toe in the water and working with, whether it's municipalities, whether it's our own individual terrorism units within the state, City of Cleveland, Columbus. So I'm looking for those connections, because you need our technology, and I want to help you get it ASAP, because the more people that are monitoring these larger events, at the end of the day, it's going to save more lives.
For sure. Yep. Great cause. Appreciate it, Ed. Have a great one. Thanks again.
Thanks, Steve. Appreciate the time. Have a good one.